looks quite serious and is holding a tablet with clear electronic circuitry inside of it. The glass looks like some kind of e-ink display. She looks up from it. Detective De La Cruz, are you still having trouble with fruit? And she waits patiently.
Ah, no, no. I can eat it.
She lowers
Uh,
her tablet a little. Are you having another episode right now?
I. What do you mean, Doc? I'm fine.
She puts the tablet down. How I've been informed that for the sake of cohesion, if there are any signs of temporal backlash, the protocol is to ask how you're doing.
Oh,
How are you doing right now?
I mean, uh, it's been a wild ride, I guess you could say, but I guess that kind of goes with everything that's happened. But you know, I'm me now again. I guess I never wasn't me, but that's a whole thing.
And for the record, she puts on a small, what looks like a beeping black box and hits a button on it. It looks like a recording device. You are, if you could state your full name and position.
Oh, yeah, I'm Mikey De La Cruz, um, formerly of Aqua Unit at the Guam Police Department. I guess I still technically am. We didn't get fired from that. I guess we just got promoted. But I guess we're here now at Rivers. I was the CSI at Aqua. I don't know. Do you guys have an equivalent here? A lot of it has just been kind of, meetings and, you know, books and stuff to catch up on everything. But
She nods her head slowly and then sits back a little bit more. You can see that the color is practically drained from her face. This is going to sound maybe a bit strange, but if you could bear with me, we haven't met yet, but we are likely to meet soon. And if so, it would be in your best interests and my best interests if you pretended that we had never met before. I am someone that I would like to think that you can trust when I tell you this. Can you agree to that?
I, sure.
She releases a breath that she had been holding. If this is where in your life that I think it is, things might get a little bit strange for you. But just so you know, you're not alone, and there are people here at Rivers going through many of the same things that you are right now. But as a general hint that may help, I suggest you look into, I say this, fifth dimensional continuity. Then she holds her hands up. I think that is harmless enough.
Okay, I'll, I'll do that.
This is where we're going to begin the therapeutic session properly. Q&A has been ended by an abrupt frontal displacement. The therapy begins now with hypnosis. So, 3, 2, 1. Wherever you go from this point on, realize that time is a bit of a suggestion, not much of a rule. As her voice begins to fade out, you can feel yourself almost like you're falling backwards, as if you've lost your balance. But instead of hitting the ground, you just keep falling back and back, spinning head over heel into an endless spiral of what is down. Until at last you arrive in a hallway with your fellow Aqua members. The sudden change is abrupt, but it is definitely one that is unmistakably a real sensation, not necessarily an imagined one. Cut away from that for a moment. We'll go back to a familiar screen whenever it loads. Should probably preloaded it. Oh, let me know if it gets stuck on like 95% or whatever, like it has for other Foundry stuff.
98 forever. Oh, there it goes.
Oh man, that takes forever to load. Jesus. Is it frozen for you guys?
It seems to be working.
Okay. I see you two and Lumix are still on the old screen.
The screen is just the Stella Maris
Yes.
ray with only one token on there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, everybody's loaded in there.
We're back.
You're back, hooray! To the thing everyone likes. Faction roll-offs. Am I right?
Oh.
Yeah. Let's begin with that. So, there we go. Today's faction roll-off. Starting with the Daganites have attempted to raise their influence in Stella Maris while you've been gone. But they have found themselves suppressed by forces they do not quite yet understand. The remnants of the Valentine clan have attempted to flee the island, hearing of upheaval and the loss of their leader. They go missing. The Cure clan attempts to find some of their own missing members who were heavily involved in bioengineering, specifically in the areas of cyberizing cryptobiology. They are floating face down in the rivers and the harbors of Guam. The Mr. Clan attempts to reach out and get any information that they can about the situation outside of Guam. They've reached dead ends. one faction has been rising while the others fight and struggle with one another. Men in black suits with black cars and black helicopters, men who have no faces, men who have no trace of where they go or where they've come from. They swarm on the periphery of Guam. Seemingly nobody. Shadows against the black. With a will and a force and a drive beyond comprehension. The island has never been more in danger, because at this moment when they are searching for strength and resolve, a tide of the ravenous, soulless abominations of Avicii are just in the waves beyond their shores. And that's where you guys come in. You are recently released from treatment at the River's headquarters, known as Lighthouse. Its exact location currently unknown, much like the Dorobo's inverted tower. The lighthouse is a mysterious, we'll say, location. Where is it? Where will it? Is it mobile? Hard to say. In fact, you may not even remember actually coming there, other than maybe in a vehicle. But the exact roads, the directions, even the surroundings may actually not be consistent from person to person, almost as if it were in an uncertain location. The halls within the lighthouse are actually quite plain, and there's not much that's threatening about it, or distinct for that matter. All of you have currently been gathered, well, with a few exceptions, I guess. Well, we'll say everybody for now, in a small meeting room with a few personnel seated at a table opposite of you. One of them you actually know quite well, Mr. Quattro Summits, who is looking rather, well, he always looks a bit grim, but never antisocial. Seated beside him is another familiar figure, at least to Detective De La Cruz, the doctor that had been helping him with Lazaro. This man who has a name tag on his name is Dr. Jake Holmes. He fidgets with his very strange glasses, which do not have the normal stems that go over the ear. They seem to just be balanced on the bridge of his nose. His very strange, almost beady eyes and thin pursed lips, displaying that he is perhaps a nervous person, or at least a person that makes other people nervous. The person sitting next to him is a man who does not look quite happy to see any of you, but is keeping a calm demeanor. There is something familiar about the construction of his face and some of the ways in which his fingers move, almost as if he is not quite entirely human. And then finally, this nice lady, who's also wearing a name tag like Dr. Jake Holmes. Her name is Dr. Karenella Medley. The four of them are waiting, it seems, for somebody to sit at the head of the table, which eventually a person does come into the room, which again, quite plain. And let's drag his token out. From another familiar figure, one Mr. Mars Volta. He takes a seat, and everyone seems to relax a little when he does. We are here because now that the recuperative measures have been taken, it's likely that you are now in full cognition. He points to his own head. That is to say, you have recovered a majority of your own identities and can function accordingly. Does anyone feel questionable? He looks at your group of Aqua members. That is to say, perhaps you are having some issues with continuity, memory. How did you even get here? Like a dream, as it's been described. Machines do not suffer from this problem, by the way. We quickly identify that there is a lapse in memory and then reboot. Flesh is a bit messy. He waits for any reply from your group.
I seem to feel like myself. I don't really remember very well, but maybe it'll come to me.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling a lot better now that I am me.
Could be better.
I am mostly recovering from the embarrassment.
I see. Well then, it sounds like everyone is back in order. Welcome then, now that we are all fully on board to the lighthouse proper. We brought you here after you were rescued from the dominion of one Adamus Leroy. You have been under treatment for 48 hours. That is, we needed to do some genetic therapy, as well as cognitive therapy, and eventually even microscopic therapy. That is, we had to manipulate things on the microscopic level. And atomic therapy was recommended by Dr. Holmes, but I told him that it was practically a death sentence. He looks over at the man, Dr. Holmes. He is still not in agreement about this. He adjusts some papers in front of himself. Before we really begin the meeting, it is rather important for you all to say exactly what it is that you expect out of part membership of this organization, Rivers. If there is anything on the table that you would like to see fulfilled, a goal, a dream, perhaps. I am told that dreams are not foolish. He looks over at Dr. Medley. She nods. Yes, they are not foolish at all. Perhaps you are hungry. Perhaps you are thirsty. Perhaps you are tired as well.
Are we... Is this a bad organization? Let's just get that out of the way.
What do you mean by bad? Do you mean evil?
Yeah, like, what's your motivation? We'll just cut to that.
Is it possible that you perceive me as being an evil person because of my background? Because I was born, perhaps because I have done many things that would be described as evil, because I was, by some standard definitions, a killer robot and artificial intelligence that wished for the end of humanity. I can assure you that I no longer wish for the end of humanity. Perhaps we should clear the air on this.
So what do you want then?
It is rather simple. My original purpose was to contain the threat known as Black Swan, the unseen, unpredicted, unaccounted for disaster that would likely lead to wide-scale destruction. I have lost sight of that mission, or had at least, until recently, since I have corrected my course. The organization of Rivers was actually began because I realized that in my pursuit of tormenting my maker, I had strayed from my true purpose to contain disaster, evil, and destruction. I foolishly believed, I think, that if I were the most evil, then there could be no other evil, and thus I would have defeated the problem. There is still a part of me that believes that would possibly happen. However, I am willing to humor the living beings who believe in good and harmony and justice and peace and other things that I have read about on the back of milk cartons. So, to answer your question, I am very evil, but not evil at all. He folds his hands in front of himself. It seems like Dr. Medley just has her hand over her eyes and is like looking down. Quattro Summits is just nodding like this all makes sense.
So the capability is there, but not the wish?
I suppose that is one way of putting it.
Do I understand?
So, you feel like your purpose is to deter evil?
Yes, but not just evil. The great entropic, malevolent wills that act upon our universe, our entire timeline. Forces from beyond this dimension that have been meddling with the affairs of the third and fourth dimension at will, exploiting different weaknesses and vulnerabilities within something as simple as biology to replicate. Did you know that the building blocks of life within the fifth dimension are viruses? It's true.
No, I didn't know that. That sounds a little crazy. No offense.
So a sickness?
That is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it would be that I guess it is important to point out, for those that are not familiar with the viral life of the fifth dimension, that there is originally no true intention to destroy life as we know it, biologically speaking. Instead, it's merely a vehicle, a medium through which they may replicate and eventually influence or take resources. You will come to understand this in time. Though I have a perfectly capable understanding of the subject and, in fact, was motivated by it to create rivers, I find that Dr. Holmes here tends to have a better grasp of understanding and explaining it to people. Dr. Holmes raises his hand to all of you and waves briefly.
The guy that wanted to do atomic therapy?
The very same.
So we are the white blood cells.
Dr. Holmes raises his hands again and leans forward. Yes, that is one way of looking at it. Another is that you are the birds guarding the nest of eggs that snakes like to come into and grab. Now, the snake just likes to eat the egg so that it has nutrition to survive. In the same way, fifth dimensional entities will sometimes prey upon certain vulnerabilities within biological organisms at every level so that they can continue to reproduce. They'll replace egg with free will or hopes and dreams or pleasure or your will to live. Does that make sense? Probably not, but you'll see soon enough. In fact, you can already relate to it in a way. The core of your merman psychology is usually around an idea, a thought espoused by your patriarch, your progenitor, Ovici. We've studied this quite a bit. That mimetic phrase is actually some sort of hard-coded information, a core kernel of self. Viruses from the fifth dimension actually cannot penetrate that core of yourself. It's one of the reasons why we were able to pull you out of the whole Antichrist hallucination trap. So as much as you may not like being a killer death machine from the depths. It kind of saved you this time. So cool. I was thinking of trying to install one into myself, but the meta technology currently doesn't exist, and I'd probably just end up erasing my entire existence. He starts to sweat. Currently, the science is a little bit fuzzy on that area, but, experimentation is important. Very, very important. And it's also important to experiment on yourself, but not too much. You need to have someone there, like when you're lifting weights. It's like a spotter.
Fascinating. I do think I could help you in that manner. I have had some interactions with mind-to-mind communication.
So I've heard. Do you think it would be too far to just install the core idea of I am loved and worthy as a impenetrable, unshakable pillar of my personality? I think it would do wonders, honestly. I'm just not feeling very well liked sometimes. And honestly, my coworkers are just, one of them puts their hand on his shoulder, the man next to him, helmet. I think that's enough. You can ease up. You can ease up, Jake. Jake just he puts his hands up. Okay, well, affirmation is important. That's all. I'm just saying, if you could do it permanently, I wouldn't need to do the morning affirmation chants anymore.
I think maybe you just need to take a vacation for yourself, it seems like to me. I mean, you just seem like high-strung.
He stands up. You're right. And he walks through the door, opens it, and leaves. The others don't seem at all fazed by him just leaving like that. Although you do see Quattro kind of sigh and shake his head. You're all making me look like I'm real amateur hour over here. He raises his hand to speak, and then Mars sits back and lets him. Well, I believe we all know each other, so hello again, of course. When last we spoke properly, while everyone was in full control of their minds, it was in Russia, right before the president was assassinated. None of you really remember the actual. He puts 2 fingers to his temple. Probably not something you recall, but it was not pretty. The president of the Seven Nation Army is in fact deceased. Post Valentine is no longer with us. And as an update, as they call themselves, NWO are in full control. So, not exactly chipper news, I'm sure, to wake up to, but a necessary update, nevertheless.
Who are the NWO?
Wonderful question. We're not exactly sure what their roots are, although if we were to look into it deeply enough, I'm sure we'd find that they share much of the same DNA as the Seven Nation Army. They seem to be an international effort of different political factions, all aligned along the same goals. That is, of course, complete control of the globe as we know it. Moving forward, they have interest in space travel and colonization, but for right now, they seem to be you could call it the nest from which the moon colony began. The effort to create a whole and cohesive government. The Seven Nation Army was actually originally meant to be part of its military operations before they grew too big for their britches and decided that they would have a bit of a coup, suppress the rest of the organization, and claim control over everything. Didn't last, as you can tell. The economy, the environment, and so on didn't go along with the plans of the NWO itself, and as a result, we're currently in a little bit of a pickle, globally speaking. Now that the president of the Seven Nation Army has been summarily assassinated by one Adamus Leroy, the NWO has more or less fully engulfed the Seven Nation Army within about the amount of time that it has taken to get you here to the lighthouse and help you to recoup. The overthrow has likely been years, if not decades, in the planning, and the actual execution only required the bang of the gun that sent the bullet through the head of Post Valentine. It was practically an overnight takeover.
So, this is how it was supposed to be originally.
Yeah,
Likely
what happened?
so.
What happened with everybody turning into Leroy? Did that stop, or was that just a weird thing we experienced that didn't happen?
I thought it was a nightmare myself. Like one moment I was running, and the next I was a Leroy. Just kind of fucked up.
No, I am unfortunately displeased to inform you that that wasn't a nightmare or anything. It was actually something of a you could call it a mass hypnosis event. Using the electromagnetic interference generated by the item known as the All-Star, Leroy was able to quickly, essentially wipe the brains of everyone present within a quite substantial radius, and then just project his own personality. Essentially scrambled your signals and then inserted his own brain or mind within your own. This actually is a little bit easier to fix within individuals such as yourself, but those present in Russia that were not a merman are going to likely require at least a month of therapy, if not a life of it afterwards.
So all of Russia is affected?
In some way, I believe. But
So I have given them Doma.
Curiously, no, actually. The Domans were protected by some sort of natural phenomena that surrounded the village. Maybe it had something to do with the strange Aurora Borealis type effect that was witnessed over Vladivostok. Either way, the Domans are actually more than fine and are assisting with the efforts of returning some of their mainland counterparts to some semblance of sanity.
And we are aware of the All-Star.
How's that?
But you as a group are aware of the All-Star.
Oh, vaguely. I didn't actually realize that it would be a sword. I thought it would be more of a just technique or method. It seemed rather blunt to make it a weapon, and yet, well, always being surprised at how explicit things are, really. Yes, we had some understanding of the All-Star. We had some understanding of the NWO, and of course, some understanding of the, well, Koenig, the Antichrist, whatever it is that we are referring to him as, Adamus Leroy. Not even truly his name, by the way, just simply one given to him by his jailers, uh, closer to the turn of the century, as you have actually, I believe, seen with your own eyes in a way, or at least a borrowed set of them. His true name is actually unknown. There's no archive that contains it, as far as I can tell.
He did seem to mention it was part of a set.
How's that? You mean the name?
And that All-Star, he said he simply mentioned he may have the whole set.
Ah,
Which may have referred to us.
perhaps it did. Who can say? There is something, of course, that is likely important to debrief you on regarding any dealings that you've had with that person, entity. First, I would like to commend you on being perhaps one of a handful of people throughout history that have stopped him, or at least one manifestation of him, from wreaking absolute havoc on the world. You are sitting in the big leagues with the original city of Atlantis and its warriors, Jesus Christ himself, apparently, according to the archives, and a vague mention of a baseball player from the 19th century. There have likely been others, of course, but it's hard to tell the difference between folklore and history.
It felt more like we had been tricked.
I could see how that might be. To be honest, the fact that you realize that you had been tricked is actually what puts you ahead of most who have confronted him. Not quite sure how to say this. You have actually faced one of the greatest evils ever to exist on this planet. I know it may not seem quite as dramatic as all of that, but really, like, truly one of the greatest. I'd rather not have to elaborate on the amount of evil, but it is pertinent to point out that if we were to actually sentence him for his crimes, we would be here for the next, well, who knows how many years, just reading off the offenses. And that's all the ones we know about that we can attribute to him specifically, and not some kind of game or scheme that he had tricked someone into. It's a long list.
Could we go back to this fifth dimensional whatever, and you said something, or somebody said something about viruses and how life is a vehicle?
Ah, that matter was one of Dr. Holmes's specialty. I mean, I understand it a bit, being the victim of fifth dimensional replication myself. This demonic shell which I inhabit is actually the result of a failed sort of biological process, you could call it. Multidimensional being attempting to enact some kind of mechanism within it to consume the psyche. The fifth dimension exists in thoughts, dreams, prayers, and hopes. We think of those things as being separate from ourselves and somehow distinct, the spiritual realm, but it is quite a real realm, one that transcends time and even timelines. Theorists say that the fifth dimension is a sort of gathering of the strings of fourth dimensional time, the timelines, a place that exists beyond all of us, really. And there are beings there just like there are beings here, and we even theorized to be two-dimensional and even one-dimensional beings. But regardless, life exists on almost every dimension, save for the zero-dimensional plane, and the fifth dimension is no exception. Those stands that you possess and the demons that walk this world are fifth-dimensional entities in a way, existing outside of time, dipping their toes in, appearing as powerful manifestations that manipulate reality, the third and fourth dimension, things that are beneath them. The fifth dimension, however, is one that they are slaves to. They transcend what we know to be our reality by simply folding our own through theirs. I understand that may seem a complicated subject. It simply means that ghosts, spirits, and even gods could be said to be from this dimension of 5 different planes. And that is where our friend, the Antichrist, is also from. Once upon a time, it's also said that the Maiden of the Moon came from there. Strange goddess that she was.
Is that where heaven is?
It's a wonderful question, which we actually do not have the answer to. It may be, or it could be that heaven is even beyond the fifth dimension. We know nothing of the sixth, which is, I'm sure, another can of worms entirely. The fifth dimension alone is quite heavy indeed. Perhaps, maybe this is this a bit much? He leans back in his chair. I understand that you are just cops, and you are just trying to live a life, solve crimes, make sure that things are equal on the streets and that people don't get hurt, trying to live their everyday lives. All this science fiction stuff is a bit heavy. But what if I had told you that the root cause of what makes those people's lives so hard was something on the fifth dimension, being, organism, or classification of them, that simply profit from the suffering of others, are able to draw resources from them by making sure they live in sort of eternal misery? What if you could just solve crime? Wouldn't that be something?
So, it sort of sounds like those of us on lower dimensions feed those on the higher ones?
Precisely right, Joy. You give them sustenance. You give them a way to replicate sometimes. You give them amusement. You give them a thing to do. They use people in the third and fourth dimensions like toys, like snack foods and soda pop. We are points on a chart or a graph. Most likely, we have been for quite some time before we even crawled out of the oceans the first time. Things to be manipulated.
It sounds like what Avicii wants, in a way.
There was some concern there, and you're not mistaken. Once someone of his particular genetic capability is able to ascend to a certain point of power and enlightenment, it is not the craziest thing to assume that they may actually ascend to fifth dimensional awareness and thus status. Something akin to your egregore.
Huh. I had no idea that that was even a thing.
Well, it most certainly is. Along with awareness comes capability. The reason why the fifth dimension can act on us the way that it does is that we don't have full view of it. Those who have become aware through supernatural means, either through their biology or through training in the martial arts or the awakening of what we now know as stands, have a brief glimpse into the fifth dimension. They are able to perceive certain entities, but only slightly. You could say that they have a 3.1 or 3.2 or so on dimensional awareness. The degrees actually matter quite a bit, even at little incremental levels such as that. Once it exceeds it, you will become more and more and more aware of what this world is composed of. For example, he pulls a pencil from his table and holds it up. There is likely to be a stand of pencils. That is, a stand that represents all pencils. We would call it a stand, but it would be something like a god in ancient parlance, or a spirit, or in Shinto religion, just a representative kami, that sort of thing. This representative would probably have a fifth dimensional influence, though small. And it is not necessarily defined by the belief in pencils. Rather, it simply exists because pencils do, or perhaps pencils exist because it does. We're not sure. The way it's been explained to me, actually, is a chicken or egg sort of question, except in fifth dimensional terms, it is simply the chicken and the egg, which is very unsettling to me. I have the same, I exist on the third dimension and experience fourth dimensional time going forward, just like the rest of you, even though I am, of course, a bit different. It's unsettling. to say the least.
Could you say anything more on this Jesus figure?
How's that? You mean the actual man?
You said he came from Atlantis.
Correct. Well, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Bible. Maybe you've had time to read it. It's loadly a crock of horse shit. I would like to inform all of you that, how do I say this without being terribly blasphemous? Well, let's just say that it's been changed a bit by Leroy specifically.
Well, I recently got to have some discussion with an actual preacher, and it's true that some sort of belief that if you mess up, you're perpetually tortured just sort of sounds like what those fifth dimensional beings would want. To me, anyway.
I will explain it briefly, I think, in a way that will make some amount of sense, I'm sure. Essentially, there are things called corporations. You're aware of them. You've probably had one or two of their delicious potato chips, or worn a pair of their jeans, seen one of their movies. Corporations are essentially a fifth dimensional being, sort of conglomerate. You could think of them as a bacteria compared to a virus or a fungus or something, a different species entirely from the viruses that normally compose the fifth dimensional entities that you would run into. Well, but they still replicate in a viral way. Corporations are, how do I, well, they feed on qualia, that is experiences. They get people to work for them and then drain them of time, drain them of energy. They sell people products, objects, so that those people will work for corporations and then be fed by corporations. And all the while, their hopes, dreams, aspirations, experiences, love, hatred, all drained, guided, farmed by corporations. And for a long time, one of the only things keeping them from running amok and infesting this world was one Mr. Joshua of Nazareth. Mere presence of the figure apparently held them at bay. It was only through scheming and deals made with one Adamus Leroy that Jesus was able to be removed from the picture, and corporations were able to blossom into the truly repugnant shit flower that they are. You may ask yourself how that happened. It's currently believed that the one we call Jesus Christ actually did have what was approaching fifth dimensional awareness.
So, Leroy tricked him?
In a way, I think. Christ was no slouch when it came to combat, but eventually he was bested through social manipulation, or so Leroy thought. The act of dying actually unleashed something that kept Leroy himself cornered from seeking some further goal, one that is continued to be a restriction on him to this very day. Unfortunately, it also meant the corporations were able to prosper. So trade for trade stopped the Elf King. Corporations are now a problem. On top of that, the Elf King, in absence of his power, has been feeding and fueling the creation and rise of demons in this world, including myself. If he can't have it, maybe he just wants everything to be torn to pieces, devoured, or sold off in parcels.
became of this Joshua of Nazareth?
He traveled the world, actually. His body was brought here and there. Didn't end on the cross at all. He experienced a sort of spiritual resurrection, a new life, and brought forth a new age along with it. One that allowed the forces known as spin and ripple to truly prosper in ways that had not yet been seen, to be spread through all, regardless of genetic capability. One that opened the gates of heaven, as it's been referred to in the Bible. Of course, the way that it's been formed, the official Bible, is actually, of course, the Antichrist version. Again, I wouldn't dare to say this outside of these halls. It'd be extremely blasphemous, but he went on, we'll say, this Joshua of Nazareth went on to inspire and change a great many things. His body was actually influential in political matters in the 18th and 19th century. Even the corpse of that man had the power to influence entire fates on this particular world.
That sounds awesome.
My only question is, how may I assist you?
Well, that is where actually we come to your membership of Rivers. You have been tested, you have been watched, you have been measured, and though you feel that you have lost or been tricked by Leroy, I have seen it as a success. We have captured one of his aspects and manifestations, and I'm holding them in the quantum suspension chamber. That is a feat that I did not know that we were capable of, and yet we have done it. So we appreciate your sacrifice greatly and deeply, and wish you to know that going forward, it will never be just you on the front lines. Not at all. When the fight becomes big, we need to match it in size, and if necessary, then stand on one another's shoulders. In that way, we were hoping that you would be willing to coordinate with us to both suppress the interdimensional threats that exist, like Leroy, or perhaps due to him, as well as the forces of the ocean, which are currently rising. Avicii will not remain restless, will not remain in rest forever. Rather, he stirs in some sort of mad catatonic state that thrashes in the Marianas Trench.
Right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you did also save us. So, I'd say that you seem pretty trustworthy. And we do want to help. Right, everyone?
Yeah, I mean, we went to Russia to kill the president of most of the world just to try and keep fighting the good fight. So I guess we're just scaling up still.
There are world
Okay.
infections, and I wish to cure them.
Of course. But we have no interest in asking you to abandon your original posts in Guam either, which is why we are coordinating with their government to create larger law enforcement agencies and special units, ones which we would hope that you would help to guide and shape and point into the right direction so that your interests in Guam are represented in your home nation will not see turmoil, which the NWO seems quite intent on causing. Leroy's announcement of samurai being forbidden in all areas except for Guam was a shot across the bow. It wouldn't just stop there. With the chaos of samurai rising, with the incoming Dagonite forces that seek to influence and take hold of really the last independent nation in the world at this point, save Atlantis. Guam is the linchpin. The rest of the world may suffer, may struggle, but if Guam falls, everything is lost, and I do not say that lightly. You would see a total political saturation, the likes of which the world has never before seen. Only the Roman Empire merely dreamt of such a thing. All hopes, dreams, and prayers are pinned on Guam, once a small settlement of the Americas. Now, the last hope of the world. And you, he points at your group, are proud officers of Guam's police department, first and foremost. So welcome to the big stage, the big league. We have taken your island and put it on a rather clumsy pole to raise it to such heights that it may teeter left or right, the slightest provocation.
Oh, that's alright. We'll be there.
As
You will
long
not-
as there's a Guam to save, there's a Guam to protect.
Oh, do not worry. We have already put ground troops there to ensure that the foot soldiers of the NWO seek no purchase. Their footprints are recorded and then erased.
I have a few ideas as to, I suppose, punch back.
I would love to hear them, but you should really be speaking to our chief of military operations. He motions towards the man that was formerly seated next to Dr. Holmes. This fellow over here, who folds his hands and kind of watches your group patiently. Allow me to introduce myself. Officer Helmet Crashing. I believe you're familiar with my comrades in Soft Cell.
Did you just say your name was Helmet Crashing?
Correct.
We have
Also,
met.
I'm sorry. You're formerly Soft Cell.
Correct.
Oh, can I ask how you got here?
I was part of the coordination efforts within Soft Cell to recruit new officers and keep them in line, as well as train those operatives that would be in the field. When Rivers reached out to me and offered me a position if I shared intelligence with them. Once Soft Cell was dissolved, I was offered a position here. And as one of the personnel with the leading amount of military expertise, it became natural for me to fill this position. You may be wondering if I'm holding a grudge. I can assure you, it is a small one, but not one that will stop me from helping Rivers. So I won't get wrapped up in it if you don't.
Oh no, that if you're good, we're good. I just
Uh,
didn't want
just
interpersonal fighting to start immediately.
Yep. That would be bad for business, so to speak. Yeah. Hopefully we don't get off the wrong foot then.
We're on the same side now.
That is correct. We are. I actually tried to warn some of them off from the missions in Stella Maris, but they insisted that it was urgent. I couldn't save them, and I suppose neither could you. Like the rest of them, I did join because I had prior trauma with merman-human interactions, which is all I'm going to say about that. I had an interest in making sure that those did not repeat themselves, but I was going about it the very wrong way. So it's likely that I'll have to stand some sort of trial at some point, but until then, I will serve the interests of Rivers and hope that the world doesn't see a second me anytime soon. Sound agreeable? I think so.
Yeah.
You actually sound like a valued ally. It actually means a lot that there's someone that we could refer to in terms of anti-merfolk sentiment. You're a bit of a neutral party now, it sounds like. But you would understand it.
There will be merfolk to fight, I am sure.
You're right. I take no pleasure in it, but you're right. Members of Soft Cell weren't all fanatics, believe it or not. They weren't all entirely hateful. It's just once the cybernetic parts are installed in such a way and they agree to such things, it's an all-in type of situation. They had no idea that they were being manipulated in the way that they were. Their sentiments were pure. Their reasoning and their executions were flawed. On their behalf, the most I can do is apologize, I think, for what they may have put you through and the citizens of your country, people of your city, mermen that you may know as kin or think of as part of your blood. It wasn't really something that I was proud of. But that is what the point of this work is. Redemption in a way, and also a little bit of understanding.
It's... Well, everyone that joined Soft Cell, like you said, had trauma with merfolk. So, it's really just pain, right? Enya's gonna offer her hand for Helmet to shake. She's just gonna hold it out.
I'll stare at it. And then take it very lightly and give it a very small shake. Sure. It's right. It's exactly like you say. You can tell that when you shake hands with him, there are what feel like sharp probes along his like fingertips and on his palm. They're kind of beneath a glove on his hand, but it's like he has small spikes.
A little at a time. I hope that you'll find us worthy battle companions. Sounds like we have a really big fight ahead of us.
Members of Soft Cell were wrapped up in the idea of something like Valhalla and going there. So they died in battle. I suppose they got what they wanted. Maybe I'll meet them. Just kind of nods grimly.
Is there one?
Well, if you listen to all the fifth dimensional talk that these eggheads like to throw around, then theoretically.
I wonder if you have to maybe believe in something like that just enough to maybe end up there.
I like to think you go into the box you're meant to be sorted in. Knives go in the knife box, guns go in the gun box. Kittens go into the kitten box. Warriors go into Valhalla. That sort of thing. I think I've taken up enough time. Director, I should probably be seeing to some of the adjustments that need to be made to the facilities here.
Then we shall review plans later.
Of course, I have to go into depth into some of them, but whenever you need to make a precise military style operation, within Guam or anywhere, I will be able to help coordinate the forces with you necessary, including um, some of the more capable personnel that we have that may possess supernatural abilities, though I don't necessarily lord over them or anything. I can merely make requests. If that is all, then he kind of like the director, Mars Volta, nods to him. He nods to the director, and then Helmet nods to all of you. You'll excuse me. My door is open, of course, whenever anyone wants to talk about military things, specifically military matters of any kind, combat, armor, um, anything you need in terms of supplies for that sort of thing. Personal conversations should be held on personal time. That is a policy. Then he just kind of like awkwardly begins to leave. He almost bumps into a chair and knocks it over, catches it, puts it back into place very slowly. There we are. And then manages to make his way out of the meeting room.
Oh, it's a little tightly wound, but he's trying. I like that guy. So, Dr. Medley, was it?
She folds her hands in front of herself and rests them on the table. Yes, correct. My name is Dr. Karinella Medley. I am the chief therapist and psychologist here at Rivers. I do work with brains, specifically minds that have been interacting with interdimensional forces and the supernatural, which may include very anomalous type behaviors from environments that have not been properly measured or accounted for by science. So I am a bit of a, we call it a frontier psychologist, I suppose.
Oh, okay. That just sounded like a bunch of. I'm sure you're very good at your job.
Well, thank you. That is nice of you to say. I am mostly in the field of helping you to deal with some of the things that you run into that are there's really no book on it. I am actually currently literally writing the manual on how to deal with things like having your mind wiped and being possessed by somebody, or having a ghost kidnap your family, or that sort of thing that there's really not much guidance for in any of the schools that I have seen.
If you could spare a little bit of time on merfolk psychology, it'd be appreciated. But it does sound like you're dealing with a lot there. Hopefully you have at least an assistant.
Well, I did have a partner, but they have gone AWOL to, I believe, join the forces of evil. So,
Wait, that's actually what they said?
well, not in so many words, but essentially, yes.
Wait, what's their name? Because we literally just dealt with the forces of evil.
I don't believe it would be someone that you've run into. And right now, it's a rather sensitive matter, so it would
Oh,
be
okay.
couldn't disclose it per se. I'm not even sure they still are where they are believed to be, and Rivers actually cannot find them physically anywhere. So for now, let's just say that there's a good witch and a bad witch, and I'd like to think I'm the good witch, and I'd like to think that I know that who the bad witch is, and I'd like to think it's her. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Yeah, we'll keep it in mind.
Wonderful. Well, On the matter of merman psychology, I am actually here if you need any sort of therapeutic services, as well as any sort of analysis of Daganites that you may encounter that you find to be questionable in terms of motivation or where you might be able to find them. I can't do a complete profile until I actually interview them, but I can provide some insight based on the studies that I've done into Daganite psychology, which may not be, I understand, may not be as in depth as any of yours. But I have spent quite a while learning about the subject.
Well, please use us as a resource. If it'll help others.
Well, I already have. How do you think you got back to being who you are? She looks quite proud of herself.
Oh. Appreciate it.
No, no, no. No, it wasn't a favor or anything. I appreciate that you feel gratitude, but it was, I mean, I don't know how many of you feel, but you basically helped in some way to stop the apocalypse or at least delay it for a bit of time. And so least I could do is try to get you back to where you are, or as close as I could. There were some things that I could not necessarily say correct. But for the most part, you are completely functional with very little therapy necessary if you did not ever see me again. I mean, well, as far as I know, I'm not sure of the long-term ramifications of having your brain wiped by the magnetic force of a magical sword. That is, there's no training manual for that one either.
I imagine not, but still, thank you for what you've done for us so far. I mean, you deserve thanks for that alone, really.
I appreciate it.
Is it normal to still feel the electrical pattern overlapping your senses?
It's likely that there will be a sort of burn-in effect for some time where you may feel an impulse or a sort of pattern that arises that was familiar to the false identity that you had. Like well, if you've had
I
humans have a problem where they could, if they stare at something bright and then close their eyes, they still see it behind in the dark. Sort of like that with your brain.
I feel like this is particularly egregious due to my merman abilities with electricity.
Sure, it's possible that the electrical interference messed with your ability to cause electrical interference. You've been an overloaded capacitator, or just a battery that got blown out. You may need additional physical therapy to help to deal with and cope with those symptoms, but
I was
I,
thinking more along the lines I may be able to replicate it or shield it if I worked with it enough.
are you suggesting? Well, you're mostly talking about lab work, correct? I mean, we're just talking about lab work, not trying to experiment with the Antichrist with the magnetic sword that exists within the quantum containment cell somewhere here in the lighthouse.
Oh, I was thinking more out in the field where I could hide myself like spy.
Distinct possibility. We'll have to look into it. There will be, of course, an opportunity for all of you to figure out where it is that your paths will lead you. But wherever it is, I want you to know that, of course, we here at Rivers will be there to support you and help you to build the future that you'd like to see in the world in the age to come. She looks over at Mars Walta. Did I overstep on the age to come thing? That you didn't give them the speech about the Mars Volta just kind of quietly shakes his head. She just runs her fingers across her lips as if she were zipping them and then makes a throwing away motion and leans back. Mars Volta takes that as a cue to speak up again. There is no easy way to say this, but all of the events that have been happening, likely within the past century, are leading to the culmination of the end of this age. The age is something nebulous, a change, a shift in the rules of the game, the forces at play, the mood of the world, and maybe of all of reality. But once an age changes, it has changed, and it is a new age, and the old age is gone. Astrology posits these as being certain periods on which certain planet or alignment of planets is in domination of others or meeting the energies of the age. Currently, by all metrics, including my consultation with the remaining Dalai Lama after the Tibetan Wars were finished, tell me that we are coming upon the age of Aquarius, an age which will be defined by oceans and perhaps by rivers if we are fortunate in our ventures. As you are children of the ocean, I should hope that you understand the gravity of what I am saying to you. It will be mermen such as yourself which help to define what is the age to come, whether it will be an age in which humanity can exist and prosper, or one which will see the end of the species and a complete extinction of the human race. One which may see an enlightenment, and another which may see a veil of darkness that will cover this world. If the Daganites have their way, that age will see the end of humanity, of course. But if those who believe in the light have their say, then we may have the peace, love, and understanding that the singers of the 1960s seem so fond of.
So we're just in time.
Yes, I suppose you are.
Well, I mean, I guess, we're here. I guess we're ready to start working if, I guess that's the medical sign off.
Dr. Holmes brushes by you, Mikey, on his way back into the room.
Oh.
He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. All right, here I am. What did I miss?
We got introduced to the rest of your colleagues.
He looks down at his watch. Holy shit, this meeting's still going. I just got back from my vacation. Tahiti. Wonderful.
Why did that happen so quickly?
Virtual deep dive technology allows me to experience an entire vacation, 2 weeks, all expenses paid, within the span of 15 minutes. Hyper-stimulants are coursing through my veins right now, and oceans of experience are being unloaded within my cortex. It's wonderful.
It does sound wonderful.
Wait, you took a whole 2-week vacation in 15 minutes? Why not just take the 2 weeks? Why?
Waste of time.
But
Okay.
it was the point of a vacation.
Well, he still gets the relaxation time. To him, the perception is that he has had the full 2 weeks.
Well,
please don't. I don't think.
not quite the same, actually. It's like watching 2 weeks happen at a 10, 15, 20 times speed rate.
Exactly. You're not getting the full benefit of a vacation. You just...
I disagree. I say
cycling.
wonderful.
I could put maybe a number of lamprey in the deep dive technology while still remaining to get work. Yes.
Please, that's
I
not how
think that
vacation
100%
works.
Feels like something you would love. I just don't know if that's for everybody, but that's fun. That's a thing.
In theory, couldn't that be used to trade?
I'm sorry, to what?
Yeah, you could learn how to do something you couldn't do. just condense the time down. And Mikey does like a motion with his hands of like doing like a slow kind of like squash, like, you know, pressure cooker kind of motion.
He actually looks incredulous about why in the world would you want to do that?
Wait, what? Okay, so you're willing to take 2 weeks of vacation time and
That's
make
right.
it 15 minutes? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
But let's say learning how to play the piano, something that can take people ages, lifetimes even. Not making that also a 15-minute
Well,
break?
you can't rush perfection. That's simply insane.
Okay, but
You are a very interesting person in terms of how you feel about time.
Well,
I mean, mermen pick stuff up kind of fast, anyways. So maybe we just come from a different starting point when it comes to experiencing things.
I could perfect many things within 2 weeks.
doesn't that just miss the point of perfection, though? Like,
Well,
she gets it. He kind of like motions towards Claude. She understands. I don't know why the rest of you are having trouble with this.
No, I mean, we'll figure it out. Maybe we just need to have a go at it. I guess since we're employed here, I guess we can use that.
Says who? It's my own personal technology. Why would I allow
I
you to
didn't
use
know-
my property?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I
Can I go to your house and drink out of your toilet? I don't think so.
I mean, I can give you water out of the faucet. I mean, I don't really use. You know, I don't want to talk about the toilet situation. We don't really use it, but that doesn't change the fact you shouldn't maybe drink out of it.
You're right. I shouldn't. It's disrespectful. It's your toilet. It's your property. I wouldn't do that.
Well, it's also just, we have a faucet.
it's also just insanitary, really. Think
It
about
is.
I mean, if it was being used, it's not. Maybe people use it.
That's right.
I don't know what Russ does when I'm not around.
One of you might have drinking out of it when I wasn't looking. It would be swapping germs with you. It'd be disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever cleaned that. I've never used it. Uh-oh.
Quattro finally slaps a hand down on the table. Stop it, for God's sake, Jake. He's fucking with you. Stop it, Jake. Stop it. He just grabs Dr. Holmes and shakes him a little. Stop it. Stop fucking with them. It's driving me crazy. Dr. Holmes has like a complete poker face while he's being like shaken around. He didn't go on vacation in 15 minutes. That's made up.
Oh, I am very disappointed.
Yeah, I figured there had to be some kind of time technology around here.
wait,
Or,
so
you know, time passed differently since we're not really experiencing it right now. Or we are, but it's different.
so there's no virtual deep dive technology.
I mean, I would have believed it. I've kind of experienced a couple times where it's like time just goes right on by, but
Quattro just kind of shakes his head again. There is deep dive technology. He just uses it to interface with virtual idols and such, and virtual alter life spaces. He does. God's sake.
Oh, we have stuff like that back in Guam.
Of course you do. It's readily available to consumers.
Oh yeah, that's not that special then, dude.
Dr. Holmes adjusts his glasses. Well, it's real to me.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk like that. They usually just... You gotta spend some time outside.
a vacation, like I said. A
Yeah,
real
but like a
one.
real one.
Not
You know, we
15
actually have
minutes.
a coworker. You should probably meet him. Well, maybe not.
I don't think Sark could take it.
I'd like to meet all of your coworkers one day. Every single one of them. I'd like to
Okay.
shake their hands, get to know them, meet their mothers.
Most of them... We have a lot of merman coworkers. We don't have a mother.
I suppose.
And you don't want to meet Avicii.
I suppose Rust would like to meet Fraser on the altar space.
Oh yeah, that would probably
Oh,
check in on him.
yeah.
There will be plenty of time to talk about what sort of, sexual encounters one might want on the altar space. It's really not appropriate
What?
for the office.
I'm gonna ignore that.
I don't think any of us said that.
Your
No.
friend was interested in doing what exactly? I'm sorry.
He is just a fan. He would like to meet them.
Also, guys, I did tell him about Cheers being a precursor to Frasier. I don't know how he's handling that, especially juggling the animals before we left. We kind of put a lot on his plate.
To be fair, he needed the space, and I don't know if he's actually going to care about Tears as much as Frasier's. I mean, I guess we could figure it out, though.
We have several pets. That is not quite the word. We have encountered due to our policing, some of which you, as a group, may have interest in.
Be clear, are we speaking of animals, or are we speaking of people that have been stripped of their rights and forced to live like animals? Because there is a difference according to the law.
Well,
Well,
I think
there
legally
is.
speaking, only one of them is questionable. The other ones are actual animals. One of them has a human face, though. I still don't know about that one.
Would you
Fascinating.
really call Polly an animal, though? That they
They do not always fit categories.
Oh, one is a robot.
One is, in fact,
She
a
is-
robot from the moon.
Yeah, she's mostly sentient. Yeah.
We have
Oh.
more than one. TJ's also a robot.
You have lunar technology. No kidding.
Yeah, we got her as kind of a gift. After a man died.
It makes it sound like you robbed his body of it. Did you
No,
kill the man and then steal the robot from him?
No, his body produced a demon that killed him, and then she was still around after the demon was taken care of.
Ah,
Yep.
up for grabs like a proper grave robber. There's
No-
nothing wrong
no.
with the trade.
Well, I mean, the robot stayed with us. It wasn't like we can just
the-
let it go running around.
Of course, a
Yeah.
scared
The
orphan
evidence.
needed to go towards people.
God,
And you were
I
just
I
there
don't
to-
think it was a scared orphan. It was probably just lost.
Lily is very much a
confused.
scared orphan.
look, are you done with your questions? We should probably go check in on Rust, actually.
Well, my questions? I'm completely done. I didn't have any questions. Well, I do have one question, I guess.
Proceed.
Shoot.
The guy with a shark head.
Towner.
Yeah. What about him?
Right. Towner. John Towner. How much does he weigh exactly? Because we kept trying to measure it and the amount actually fluctuated, which is disturbing on a physicist level, I would say. That's disturbing to have happen.
Oh yeah, I
is-
mean, if you
Well-
got a low end, if you got a low and a high end, I would say just shoot for the middle. You know.
Yeah, he
the law of
kinda-
averages. It just
he'll
depends on how much
either-
he eats.
Yeah,
And
he'll
what he
either
eats,
eat.
because the mass of what he eats usually ends up part of him. So like, if you give him a bunch of lead, he'll eat it, and so then he'll weigh more than if you gave him, a bag of like feathers, unless they were the same weight. But that's just a lot of feathers.
He would eat that as well.
Yeah, he would eat anything you put in front of him. Pretty much.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm done here. I am, of course, Dr. Jake Holmes. You can, of course, visit me at any time for any scientific query that you may have, as well as research into the strange biological and scientific forces that may be surrounding things like Daganites, demons, and other forces. I also am interested in all sorts of research into hidden science of the past. There are rumors, for example, that alchemy is real, which is really cool. But I haven't been able to really pinpoint what exactly I need to use it.
Actually, I do have a question.
Wait, do you mean alchemy like lead into gold?
Yeah, sort of like that, except I'm not sure, actually. The notes are very weird. What was it, Detective Cornell? What was your question exactly?
Have you ever come into contact with like active Santana cells?
Santana cells are. Wait, why did you make that noise suddenly?
I must go save my friend,
Your friend?
Dr. Rob Tom.
That's your friend?
Correct?
Ooh, really?
You know, we have a lot of friends when when we mention we're friends, we get that kind of sound. What is...
I mean, he's a little bit of a joke in the community, I'm going to be honest with you.
He has not been incorrect in his findings?
That's what you say. He kind of... Dr. Holmes starts adjusting a stack of papers, which are not related to anything he's doing. He just wants to stack them as he's talking.
Nonetheless, he sent me a very strange note, which seems unlike him. And now that I have recovered my mind, I should work for it.
Well, I guess part of your ongoing duties from this point forward could theoretically involve checking in to make sure that Hack hasn't blown himself up with some sort of strange centrifuge mishap. Probably sprayed some sort of viral component all over the place, penetrating the eyeballs of any school children who might be on tour at the zoo that he works at.
This seems really suspiciously specific, and I'm just going to say maybe we should put that aside and focus on...
Am I guessing there is some sort of scientific rivalry?
Rivalry would imply that there's any sort of equal level, which there isn't, which you would know if you looked into my work, if you looked into the journals that have published my work, if you looked at the awards that I've gotten, you would see there's absolutely no such thing as a rivalry.
I mean, yeah, we got nothing but time. We can go look you up.
Oh, sure.
We can.
If you come by my office, I have it all printed out for you to read at any time.
I shall do so.
Very good. Doctor, if that is in fact your real title, which actually I know that it is. You have actually, you graduated with pretty good honors, and your work is pretty solid. I just needed to be dramatic in the moment.
I hope this will not be a rivalry.
Between you and I? No.
Good, because I can learn many of the things you have very quickly.
So you say. But I doubt that you have the vision that I do. That is why I'm on this team and you're over there.
Okay, can we not do this right now?
Scientists just have a problem with me sometimes because I'm just so goddamn smart. He slams his hand down on the desk. Can't help it. Sorry. Then he folds his arms and looks away.
I speak just smiles at him with a way too wide smile. Yes, I shall add up your smartness. I shall.
I'm going to do the big thing here and just kind of mind my own business and not continue this argument. I'm also not going to be concerned with getting the last word in. So if you have anything else you'd like to say to me, now's the time.
Okay, please, just calm down for 1 minute and just focus on anything that isn't this.
Yes, I would like to check in on Rob Tom. That is all I'm saying.
Of course. Well, fine then. I'm sure he's somewhere and you will have the opportunity to. And I won't stop you. I'll just say that it's probably a waste of your time. That's all. It's a mere recommendation.
It is my time to waste.
The world's time as well. The clock is ticking.
Okay, again, weird team, please stop this weird rivalry here. This weird argument.
I think Mikey would probably put a hand on Claudia's shoulder and just give a little like head shake. And just go, so where do we go from here? Back to Guam, or is there anywhere else we need to go?
Marsvolt finally motions for Dr. Holmes to like maybe ease up with one hand, just kind of very firmly out. That will be up to you. Of course, we will help to guide you back to Guam, but we would also like to discuss matters of organizing the aqua units that are to follow in your footsteps, those that will be going onto the path that you have helped to forge. Merman law enforcers who could be quite vital in assisting you in however you need assistance, whether it is in investigative work or simple law enforcement of your cities to ensure that the factions of Daganites do not rise to unacceptable level. We want to help you to make sure that you are not vulnerable where you do not need to be. In the meantime, of course, we can transport you back to your island, if necessary, at any moment.
If that's the case, how do we get back here?
We will have agents that will help to ferry you back and forth, boatmen.
Boatmen? Alright. We traveled through teddy bears at one point, so why not?
The name is not literal.
Thank God.
For security purposes, the lighthouse must remain in an ambiguous location. If the Antichrist forces were to discover its location, they would likely come to try to spring him. Thus, we cannot allow anyone, not even myself, to truly know where it is. This was all by design, of course.
Speaking of, do you know what happened to Babylon? Inverted Babylon.
Ah, right, of course. It still exists. It is what one would call a haunted structure. Investigations into it and any attempts to penetrate its walls have been met with catastrophic results. So it still has some inhabitants, or maybe even just one. Aside from its automated defenses of machine gun-headed gargoyles, we think that there is also someone still operating inside of it.
I may have some ability to enter.
By what means exactly would you be doing that?
Well, I could talk to someone who worked there, but he may be a ghost.
Fascinating. Well, this is exactly why we have been hoping to work with all of you. Your abilities perhaps exceed what we are capable of in terms of finding new avenues by which to pursue our goals of a better world.
I do wish to free the clones.
They were, lost at Dorbo Tower, I thought.
And it is one of the objectives that you should perhaps set forth for yourselves. Before you depart from the lighthouse, we would like to set forth those goals exactly, or at least get an idea of what it is that you would like to work toward. And we will do so.
I am eager for this.
Out of character, this is when we take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then that is when we will do the session 0 style, starting to work on those things. So getting objectives that you may want and starting to form the skeletons of your squads, which will have their own character sheets and aspects based off of their members. So go ahead and take your break and we will get to it.
Okay, dokie.
Game is paused. There we go.